Good morning. President Donald Trump is in Anchorage, Alaska, today for a historic and high-stakes summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The meeting, held in a location roughly equidistant from Moscow and Washington, D.C., is the first direct summit between the leaders of the two nations since June of 2021, just 8 months before Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. President Trump has framed today's discussion as a feel-out meeting, with the primary objective of determining if a ceasefire in Ukraine is possible. He stated earlier this week that he believes he can make that determination within the first 2 minutes of their conversation. The president has been clear that he does not intend to broker a final deal himself today, but rather to set the stage for a potential second, more comprehensive meeting that would include Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. However, he has also issued a warning, threatening very severe consequences for Russia if President Putin does not agree to end the war. Ukrainian President Zelenskyy is not a party to today's summit and has expressed significant reservations. In a recent statement, he declared that any decisions made about Ukraine without Ukraine's participation are dead decisions that will never work. He also noted this week that there is currently no sign that Russia is preparing to end the war. In contrast, the Kremlin has signaled a more optimistic tone, with President Putin praising what he called President Trump's sincere efforts to stop the hostilities. Adding another layer of pressure to the talks is the impending expiration of the new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty in February, which caps the number of deployed nuclear warheads for both nations. Putin has hinted at possible future agreements on strategic arms control. When pressed by reporters on whether meeting with Putin effectively rewards him for the invasion, President Trump dismissed the idea, stating the war should have never started and that he is there for the sole reason of trying to solve it. Meanwhile, back in the nation's capital, a major confrontation is brewing between the federal government and the District of Columbia's local leadership. Following President Trump's executive order declaring a crime emergency in Washington, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi issued a directive on Thursday aimed at cracking down on crime. The order rescinds D.C.'s sanctuary city policies, which limit cooperation with federal immigration authorities. In a more dramatic move, the order also names Drug Enforcement Administration Administrator Terry Cole as the city's emergency police commissioner, granting him full authority over the Metropolitan Police Department and effectively stripping power from the current chief, Pamela Smith. This federal intervention has already seen a visible increase in federal law enforcement and National Guard presence, with one recent operation resulting in 45 arrests, 29 of whom were identified as illegal immigrants. However, the move was met with immediate and forceful pushback from D.C. officials. District of Columbia Attorney General Brian Schwalb issued a legal opinion declaring Attorney General Bondi's order to be unlawful. In a letter to Police Chief Smith, Schwalb asserted that she is not legally obligated to follow the federal directive. He argues that the D.C. Home Rule Act does not authorize the president or his designees to remove the police chief, alter the chain of command, or set the enforcement priorities for the local police force. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser publicly supported Schwalb's position, stating that no statute conveys the district's personnel authority to a federal official and calling on the community to protect the city's autonomy. A key component of this federal takeover is a new approach to homelessness in the city. Housing and Urban Development Secretary Scott Turner announced that the administration is committed to ending what he called the cycle of government dependency. The plan involves clearing out homeless encampments located on federal land managed by the National Park Service. According to the White House, 70 such encampments have already been removed, with the final 2 scheduled for clearance this week. The policy gives individuals in these encampments a choice: accept assistance and services, or face arrest. Secretary Turner framed the initiative as part of the administration's broader law and order agenda, stating that crime halts revitalization in its tracks, and that years of failed local policies have led to chaos and violence. While Mayor Bowser has acknowledged recent problems, particularly with large groups of youths causing disruption, she has strongly criticized the federal intervention as an authoritarian overstep. The D.C. Police Union, however, has backed the Trump administration's actions, pointing to the city's 100th homicide of the year as evidence that federal intervention is a necessary turning point for public safety. The administration's focus on immigration is also facing legal challenges on another front. A federal judge has ordered the Department of Health and Human Services, led by Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., to immediately stop sharing the personal data of Medicaid enrollees with federal immigration officials. In his ruling, District Judge Vince Chabria granted a preliminary injunction, blocking the Department of Homeland Security from using the data for the purpose of targeting migrants for deportation. The judge wrote that the administration failed to provide a reasoned decision-making process for abruptly changing a long-standing policy. For 12 years, both Immigration and Customs Enforcement and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services had policies against using this sensitive health data for immigration enforcement. The lawsuit was filed by a coalition of 20 states after it was revealed that HHS had entered into an agreement to give DHS daily access to the personal data of the country's 79 million Medicaid enrollees, including home addresses and Social Security numbers. While most immigrants are not eligible for Medicaid, federal law requires all states to provide emergency Medicaid to cover life-saving services for anyone, regardless of their citizenship status. Immigration advocates warned that sharing this data could deter people from seeking critical medical care for themselves or their children. California Attorney General Rob Bonta praised the ruling, stating the administration's move upended long-standing policy protections without notice or consideration for the consequences. The injunction will remain in effect until HHS provides a legal justification for its new policy.